today. Welcome to the B2B Forum right here in National Harbor. I'm so delighted to see what a full room this is. I'm so happy that everybody is here. And this Charlie's going to come back in, so thanks very much. We'll see you later. And we're back with the... There we go! There I am! So when Cliff and Scott talked to you about Fred Rogers as the patron saint of B2B marketing, I think of it in maybe a little bit more of a secular sense, maybe the biggest B2B influencer ever. Because while Fred was a very real person, I also see him as kind of a symbol for all of us in B2B marketing today. Fred's show has been off the air for 18 years. Think about this. For 18 years, he hasn't been part of our daily lives. But yet, if you Google, live like Fred Rogers, 40 million results come up. We get 40 million results are delivered back to us. So why is that? Why does he remain such an inspiration to all of us? And more importantly, why do we think of him as a sort of patron saint of B2B marketing? You know, I actually think that Fred would be okay with being the center of attention here this morning. Do you know what I think Fred would say about all of this? What would Fred Rogers say about his election as the B2B saint, patron saint of B2B marketing? Are you ready? He'd say, I'm really good at finding gifts. But the question I wonder, the question that's on my mind, is that how can we use that inspiration? How can we use Fred's inspiration to be better B2B marketers? How do we use that inspiration in our lives, but also in our work? In Fred's world, the neighborhood of make-believe was outside of the normal everyday life, right? It was something outside of day-to-day life. It was a place where if you were a kid watching the show, you would have an opportunity to ask the hard questions, to get those hard questions answered. You'd also find a way to make the sort of ethereal or theoretical real. That's what Fred did in the land of make-believe. But also, it was a place to play, right? It was a place to have some fun. I think we have that very same opportunity here in the B2B neighborhood. I think this is what we can all do here today. We can ask the hard questions. We can get answers without fear of judgment. You are among friends. But also we have an opportunity to play. We have an opportunity to get outside of our daily lives because we are living next door to each other as neighbors. So we are here for the next 48 hours as B2B neighbors in the B2B neighborhood. Some of you might be thinking that the idea of a B2B neighborhood is a little, I don't know, a little cheesy, maybe. Maybe a little bit, I don't know, corny. I mean, I get it. You may not think of Fred as being particularly cool or hip, although I would disagree with you on that. Fred Rogers was sincere to a fault, right? He spoke with this sort of slow determination. You saw that on the clip that Cliff and Scott showed. And while Fred represents all that's good in the world, I also think that he represents something else that's important for everybody in this room to understand. I think we should also see Fred as a bit of a rebel. There are two kinds of rebels in the world, right? There is the sort of insurgent, right? The terrorist, that kind of rebel. But then there's a second kind of rebel. The kind of rebel who pushes against the status quo, right? A courageous rebel, or as I think of him, as a Rogers rebel. A Rogers rebel is the kind of brave soul who stands out, who pushes for something better that he or she believes in, who actually does push against the status quo and asks, what if? What might we do differently? How can we think of things in a different way? Who also stands up for what they believe in, right? They sort of take a higher stand, and they also call us to a higher place They stand up for themselves, they stand up for their teams, they stand up for their work, and they also stand apart, right? It's our job in marketing to stand apart. Stand apart from conventional wisdom, stand apart from what everybody else is doing, and a rebel is that person who calls us all to stand apart from whatever else is going on over here, right? So Clifton Scott told the story of how Fred Rogers did not dislike marketing, but he did believe that we could do better. He thought we could do better television programming. He thought we could do better marketing in general. I think he thought we could be more meaningful communicators as well. And that point of view is exactly why I think of him as a rebel. He had a vision, and he called us to it. I look out at this audience, at all of you, and I see an audience full of rebels. You are all Rogers rebels. Why do I say that? First of all, because you are here. No one in this audience here today thinks that they are not going to grow. You are all putting yourself in the position of challenging your own thinking, of stretching outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Some of you who I met last night, this is your first marketing event. This could be your first time at MarketingProfs. Some of the speakers here are speaking on stage for the very first time. So this is an audience that is challenging itself. We are all challenging ourselves just because you're here. I think that the best marketers also challenge themselves. Like the best marketing challenges itself, right? It pushes against the status quo. But the challenge is how, right? How do we do this? How do we actually take the icon that is Fred Rogers, and how do we actually implement some of his ideas in the real world? So let's talk about 3 ways to kick Peach as a Rogers rebel. You know, I say Peach because this is a family show, my friends. You know? So I found some inspiration from some of you in the audience. I'm going to call you out as Rogers rebels. And by the way, the people who I'm going to highlight right now do not know that they're about to be highlighted. 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 Highlighted lip. We're going to go with both. Anyway, some know that they're being highlighted. Others don't know that they're being high-lipped. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So I found some inspiration from some of you in the audience. The first is my friend Allison. Where are you?
Oh my God.
Front row. Stand up, Allison. Stand up. That was like the best moment ever.
I'm Highlight. Oh my God.
You're Highlight. This is Allison, Highlight.
Thank you.
Allison started her career. I should make you stand up the entire time, but I won't. No. Well, you want to?
You're the boss.
No, that was just getting awkward.
She's the boss.
Okay. Allison, this is Allison.
Oh
Hi, Allison. Hi, Allison. Allison started her career pursuing. You can sit if you want.
Okay.
You feel awkward? I feel awkward for you.
Well, I don't know who to look at.
I'm an empath in that way. She started her career as a PhD in political psychology. And then, this might surprise you, but did you know that most marketers don't go to school for marketing?
Yeah.
This is true of Allison as well, but she got halfway through her PhD and then she ditched it. She's like, this is wrong. I'm in the wrong path right now. Instead, she went into recruiting. She fell in love with the social media and the marketing side of recruiting, the branding side of recruiting. And so she said, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a marketer. But the best thing that I love about what Allison did and why I'm calling you out as a Rogers rebel is because she made her own career path. She made her own choices. She started out handling social media for Keynote, her current company. Within 2 years, she is now the content director at Keynote, a company that didn't even have a marketing department 2 years ago. And now she leads a team there. So fantastic, right? I feel like that was a clap mic. You should see, by the way, it's like how deep red she is.
I'm
so
tearing
amazing.
up.
Super easy to hone in on her because it's like, oh, there's the red. So she's learning on her feet. She's carving her own path. She's walking her own path. And as she's learning, she's doing, she's evolving, she's leading herself forward. And why is she doing this? Because she is the expert at her own company. She said that her managers expect her to be the expert. And that means that she's got to go get the education that she needs. She can't sit back and wait for those opportunities. She's got to create them herself. She said, I often feel like I can't learn fast enough. And I love that line right there. I weirdly find that constant pressure really fun. I kind of love that a lot. So how do you be a Rogers rebel in the real world? You got to stand out like Allison. Stand out in your career. Lead your own learning. Because, take it from Allison, it will be weirdly fun. All right, my second Rogers rebel today is my friend Doug Kessler. Doug, where are you? He's over here. Also from another guy who's just dying right now. He's in the shade, but I can tell that even his beard is red. I can see it going on right there. The reason why I'm calling out Doug Kessler as a Rogers rebel is that for years, Doug runs a B2B agency in London. For years, he's been saying that it's not enough to produce great work. We actually have to sell that great work internally as well. We can't wait for people to notice. We have to let our bosses, we have to let our clients, we have to communicate those results in real world terms, right? Using the language and the metrics and the dashboards that prove how amazing our programs are. We're at this point, especially in content marketing and social media, where we know what great work looks like. But we've got to tell people constantly internally. Doug said we can only do great work if we bring people along with us. We can't just do it. We've got to bring people along with us because, he said, the work of aligning stakeholders isn't a big fat obstacle to your job. It literally is your job. He didn't actually use the word literally there, by the way, but these are my slides. I just didn't think he was going to challenge me right now. He's like, I would never use that word literally. It's actually just figuratively, but whatever. So how do you be a Rogers rebel in 2019 heading into 2020? It's to stand up for your own work, for your teams, stand up for the work that you're doing internally, let people know what the results are, right? Communicate them in terms that they can understand that actually will prove that we are driving the business forward. My final Rogers rebel today, God, I hope he's in the front row, is Brian Smith. Brian, are you here? Oh man, look at him right there. Look at Brian. So great. We need a spotlight on you. He's like there's a photographer up there. Brian Smith is a senior marketer at Tenet. Tenet, if you don't know them, they're based in Minneapolis. They're a global company that is a cleaning and they sell cleaning and coating solutions, essentially. It's a B2B company. One of the shocking things that Brian realized, leading a marketing team there, is that sales does not read emails. You take nothing else away from this. You'll improve your life a lot. Sales especially does not read emails from marketing. So here's what Brian and Chris, his team member, did. They created this. This is the Solution Tank. I love this. It's an internal podcast by sales for marketing. And it covers all the things that you would expect them to cover. It's a half-hour show, comes out once a month. It covers things like lead generation updates. It talks about new sales-focused initiatives, but also, surprisingly, a few fun segments, including my personal favorite. So I pulled a clip to play it for you. They do this thing called Dad Joke Lightning Round. So it's a lightning round of dad jokes. Did you get that? It's a lightning round of dad jokes. I was like impressed even with that, but I guess you guys are not as impressed. All right, so so I listened to every episode of this. This was my favorite dad joke by far.
So there's two muffins baking in the oven. One muffin says to the other muffin, "Oh, it's getting hot in here. Is it just me?" And the other muffin says, "Oh my God, it's a talking muffin."
Talking Because the muffin, it talks to the muffin. Get it, my dude? Anyway, so they're in the oven. So there's a few reasons why I love this. Part of the reason why they do things like the dad joke, lightning round, and a few other fun segments is because the competition for that show is like trashy talk radio, right? When the sales guys are driving between appointments. And so they had to produce something entertaining, right? It couldn't just be, this is what marketing is doing for sales. It had to be entertaining. They're also doing exactly what Doug Chester talked about, right? They're selling their work internally. And as they're doing that, by the way, as they're saying, here's what marketing is doing for sales, they're also subtly underscoring, here's what sales needs to do for marketing, right? This is a two-way street, my friend. But the other reason why I like it is because it's so relatable. It's not overly polished, it's not overly produced, it's just Brian and Chris having a conversation about what's going on in marketing, so it feels real. And yeah, this is internal, but I actually think that it's a great model for external as well. Because if there's one thing that we can take away from Fred to be a Rogers Rebel, it's to be your authentic self. Right? You don't need to overly polish and overly produce. I think it's much more relatable if you actually just show up as you are. And that's why I think a tenet of standing apart to be a Rogers Rebel is that the most relatable marketing and the most relatable marketer wins as well. All right, so stand up. Stand up just like Allison, create your own learning opportunities, educate yourself, get the tools that you need, don't wait for them to come to you. Stand up for yourself, for your work, for your team, internally, especially and externally. Get a little braggy about what you're doing. We're doing great things. Share it internally, and finally stand apart. Right? Be relatable. Anyone can copy a podcast, anyone can produce a video series, anyone can do any of that, but they can't replicate you, right? They can't replicate your voice. So why does this matter so much? Why do I get so fired up about this? Why am I so excited about having Cliff and Scott and Fred Rogers right here at the B2B Forum in the B2B neighborhood? It's because marketing has never been tasked with more responsibility. We have to put 100% of everything that we can into our work because now we are charged with so much more. Now we not only have to take care of the entire customer, we have to take care of the entire customer experience. We have to figure out what that is. We have to identify it and define it more fully so that we can lead that conversation internally. I also think that marketing needs more rebels. It needs more people like Allison, like Doug, like Brian. I forgot his name for half a second. Did you see that? He's struggling. You're going to hear a lot about technology over the next 2 days. We love technology. Technology powers so much of that connection that we can have with our customers, with our clients, with our prospects. But remember that without heart, without that sort of human connection to that technology, then we're missing out, right? We need to layer that on top of everything that we do because our tech is only as good as us, right? Our tech is only as good as the people behind it. And marketing needs you, especially. Everyone here. Marketing needs you. To stand out, and stand apart. Never before has this been more important for you to show up with your honest self, with your authentic self. Will you do that over the next 2 days, 48 hours?
Yeah.
Will you do it? Thank you so much.
Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.